Welcome to this new episode of the Voice of Africa Library podcast. Today we have a topic about unpacking the dilemma of librarianship in Africa and why is it considered a science to some.
Yes, today's topic will educate learners about the complexity of librarianship in Africa, highlighting its potential classification as a science and exploring the crucial role in information management, research and education across the continent.
Yes, and before we start our topic, as usual, we have our podcast proverb section, right?
Yes, we have the proverb of the day.
Which you really like.
Absolutely.
And what is the proverb for today's episode, Frederick?
Rats don't dance without
remembering the holes in the wall.
This proverb originates from West Africa, though it's more commonly associated with the Yoruba people, who are primarily from Nigeria and neighboring countries in West Africa.
This proverb highlights the importance of remembering past experiences, especially mistakes and dangers, in order to avoid repeating them. It reflects a broader African culture value of learning from the past to navigate future challenges more effectively.
Absolutely. In short, we need to establish our roots and whatever we have that we did in future.
So today's topic, as I said earlier, it is unpacking the dilemma of librarianship in Africa and why is it considered a science to some. And the first question we start, or the first question for you, Frederick, why is librarianship considered as a science?
I don't know exactly why I'm always asked questions, but I think I'll try to answer my level best, yeah? Ideally, if you check librarianship in as far as the training is concerned, you'll discover that bachelor's level, master's level, and the doctoral level, they're always called science. Mm-hmm. However, at the diploma level and the certificate level, they're always called crafts or artisan level. Mm-hmm. Basically, the naming of the word science came late after the World War II. When now they're talking about, they came to discover that library it's about systematic organization of information. Out of that, they say this is a systematic way, so it's a scientific way. Mm-hmm. But ideally, most people tend to ask exactly, is it a science, like is it a biology, is it a chemistry, or is it? But I think mainly it involves about the systematic of librarianship as a profession. But I think later on we will talk about exactly why is it called information science and library science. Now there's a difference.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to come to that point, but I wanted to say that the first program established for library science specifically, it was in the US by Mel Dewey in 1887. And this was like a development from the 19th century, because after the creation of library classification systems, most of the librarians know about them, like the Dewey Decimal System or classification, the Library of Congress classification, the Universal Decimal classification, and those are the first and among others, of course, now. Because there are the Chinese system, there is the Japanese now, there are many different classification systems nowadays.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
And because of that, there was a necessity to create a science, because it was not confined only on shelving books, but it was growing further and deeply.
Yes, absolutely. Even if you check on the records, it was done during the 19th century with Dewey, who was the founder of a Dewey Decimal Classification Scheme.
Exactly. So speaking about library science first, it was a development from the 19th century, and it was because there was a need after the creation of the classification systems, right?
Yes.
And then after that, during the late 20th century, I guess, mid-20th century, there was the merge of library science with information science, right?
Yes. I think that is from the 20th century. That's when you're talking about the entrance of technology. Yeah?
Yes.
So they were being merged now with the library. Mm-hmm. So that's when they talked about information science, if I'm not wrong, right?
Exactly. Also, I want to highlight something, that library science is a multidisciplinary field and interdisciplinary field. It was established, as I said, in the 19th century. Of course, this does not mean that libraries did not exist before. They existed in different ways and different forms. It just, with the expansion of technologies and the needs of the population, there was an evolvement to include also information science in the late 20th century.
Yes, absolutely. Now we discover that now the library, the way it has been trying to move around from the library science, which was strictly library, and then we talk about information science, which now it becomes a multidisciplinary, because now it's also bringing on board the technology, because now they discover that the library cannot work alone without as absorption with the technology. That's when they said it's an information handling sciences.
Yes, exactly. I also was reading a paper from Frederick Lugia, written in 2013, and he was saying that during the 17th and 18th centuries, librarians were scholars from different fields, and they saw the strong desires to understand and organize human knowledge through compiling and classifying and making the word of knowledge available. So this was also what led to the need of establishing a library science in the first place. At the beginning, the people who worked as librarians, they were scholars, but from different fields. They were not having any library training because there were none.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
After they saw the need to establish a new field of science, to make knowledge available, to classify it, to index it. So that's why it evolved and has been established in the 19th century.
Yes, but you see, according to my view, and I think all this development have been taking so fast. Now that's what now brings us a lot of confusion in Africa, because if you see the transition between library science, information science, now we're talking about knowledge management and libraries. So that means the information comes so fast that even some countries, like for example our neighboring countries in North Africa, we don't know exactly which program and the name which they're being called, because all this comes on so rapidly.
Yes, this is because, as you said, there is an evolution of technologies, and then every field needs to absorb the information that is coming and filtrate it depending on their knowledge. So that's why I think they are trying to adapt also to the changes. Even if I think the education system worldwide is failing to catch up with the technologies.
Yeah, I concur, because technology is taking place so fast. Yeah. Yes, so I believe that it's good and it's appropriate that we discuss and know exactly the difference between librarianship, library science, and information science, so that we know exactly the difference. Like for example, people in North Africa, they're calling library bibliothèque.
Yes, it's bibliothèque.
What is bibliothèque? Is it French or is it English?
It's French.
If you translate it in library, it's library.
It's library, yeah. And it's also in German, Bibliothek.
Exactly, because
it's the same. They used to call the programs biblioteconomie, which means library economy, but this has changed.
Yes, because you see, some of these concepts come around and confuse some of us, because some universities, they say book trade, library and book trade.
Yeah, that's what I had actually. For us, we had métier de livre, which means the book jobs. Some translator, they translated it as book trade, which is not a book trade as well, but they translated it. I have a translation for my degree. It's métier de livre, but they translated it as book trade, which is completely matchable.
Yeah, so you see, these are some of the dilemma. I can give an example. Example, in Kenya, we've got like 17 universities that are offering library information studies. All of them, they call them, this was part of major research. Some of them are calling them library information science, others are calling them library science, others are calling it library knowledge management science. The difference is, the ones who are calling it information science, the program is supposed to be a school, like Faculty of Information Science, or it's supposed to be a faculty. So depending on the level that it is, then that means it will make the university invest more. Mm-hmm. Like for example, if it's a school, information science, it's supposed to be more of science-based. That means science program is supposed to be also the common courses are supposed to be more of scientific. Mm-hmm. If it's an art, social sciences, then that means most probably it will be on the social science studies. So you find themselves calling themselves library information studies. Yeah. And in some areas where now they want it to expand more and to have a catchword, we call it knowledge management. But you see, knowledge management as a program cannot stand by itself and call itself knowledge management and attract students, because very few people know about anything about knowledge management. So you find the program is called Library Information Studies and Knowledge Management.
Yeah, and mostly knowledge management, we borrowed it from business.
Yes, because it was
business studies, I mean.
Business studies or information management. Yes. So what is making some of this program look complicated, of which at times they're talking about the same thing, is that where is the program placed? Like, for example, there's a university in Hungary, Debrecen University, is offering masters in information sciences. Mm-hmm. But the program is in informatics school. Mm-hmm. So it's library information science and informatics, if I'm not wrong, because there's a concept of informatics. So the program, it is more of a library, but it's a mixed up. As we said, information science and information science is interdisciplinary, right?
Interdisciplinary. And I want also to speak about what is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary for those who do not know, and to make it clearer for people as well.
Yeah, I think.
So interdisciplinary refers to a process of answering questions, solving a problem, or addressing a topic that is too broad or complex to deal with adequately by a single discipline or profession. And it requires an integration of knowledge and or methods from the various disciplines brought together to address an issue or a problem. And this I quote from the article of the professor Frederick Lugia, written in 2013, and his paper is called What Counts as a Science and Discipline in Library and Information Science. So this is what interdisciplinary means. And what is multidisciplinary? Through simply the juxtaposition of two or more disciplines focused on the proximity of the disciplines rather than the transformative effort to produce new forms of knowledge. So this is the difference for those who do not know, because we see people confused. What is multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and we don't know. So library science is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary because it includes both of these concepts, because it has information science and library science integrated, which is multidisciplinary, and it involves various concepts from other disciplines, which is interdisciplinary. So I wanted also to add about librarianship. It's the collection, organization, preservation, and dissemination of information, and also the distinction of the term information science.
I think the concept of both science, it employs a systematic methodology to the study and creation of knowledge, dissemination, retrieval, and the use of information. I think that is one of the concepts, and then I think the other one is about the scientific nature that raises about the reliance of research, theories, and practical applications that are grounded to the empirical evidence, and logical analysis. That's what also pushes towards more about science.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted also to add, according to Hayes, a paper written in 1985, he said that library and information science can be explained in 3 dimensions. First, information science is concerned with the information content of books and documents, while library science is concerned with the books and the document as physical records. And the second dimension of library and information science is that information science is concerned with the practical knowledge of value of solving specific problems, while library science is concerned with the full range of knowledge and expertise. And the third and last dimension that Hayes mentioned is the information science is concerned with the application of computer and other automated systems, while library science is concerned with the intellectual processes as handled by people. And also in this context, Buckland, in a paper written in 2012, he argues that if information science is concerned with what people know, it is a form of cultural engagement and at most a science of the artificial. This is very interesting perspective, and from this I want also your perspective on the situation of library and information science in our African countries, Frederick.
The problem about library information science is around the continent, they're diverse and they're hidden. So some information are hard because I even asked you a question about bibliothèque, which you told me it's library, but it's a French version that even in German you still have the same. But now, yeah, because if you explore random lists profession in Africa, African university, yeah, you can see that some institutions you find that the library are part of a program in a faculty. Others are they stand by themselves as a school. Depending on where it is, like for example, if a program is within a school, then that means it will be borrowing more of the concept from the school. Like for example, library studies is under the School of Health. Most of the program will be focused with health courses because it is borrowing or it's a subset of health. Like for example, if I have a library under the Faculty of Humanities, that means most probably the program will be based with more of humanities with many courses.
So just to wrap our subject up and to give a perspective in our African countries and how library and information science is considered more as a profession and not as a science, you can observe and analyze this from the lack of funding, also the lack of research.
Yes, and the lack of funding also jeopardizes the profession. Because if the program is called Library Information Studies, that you can see in some African university call it Information Studies, that means it is less of scientific base. That means less of computer programs, and that means it becomes more of theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, in Morocco, the one that you did was called something of the book.
Métier de livre, so it's book jobs, let's say.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, as far as technology is concerned, those minimal courses in as far as that is concerned, if I'm not wrong.
Exactly. What the program offered, let's say, a polyvalence to cultural mediation, to bookstores and edition houses, and also to library science. So it's like playing on these four sectors.
Yes. So me, I think African continent and the library program, in a way, they are also killing because you're supposed to know exactly at which level it is. Because let's see, out here we got information studies, we got information science, we got librarianship. Nobody knows exactly what is what because now the universities they're deciding the name basing on how well funded they are to offer the program. Because, like for example, there are universities in Africa that are called technical university and technological universities.
Mm-hmm.
By the name of technological university and technology university, it means exactly the amount of funding involved is different. Mm-hmm. Because technology university, that means the university they receive more funds. Technological university, the university receives less funds. So the same thing. If a program is called information sciences, that means it is more of scientific base and information science, and we talked about information science and computers. But when you talk about a program in information studies, then that means it's more about theoretical. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that all these professionals, at the end of the day, they are supposed. We tend to think that they can work in the same organization. All of them can advance in the same doctoral or master's level. So we tend to have weaker graduates because the confusion of these very many names.
Yeah, and not only the confusion of very many names, as you said, but also since the program it's designed in African countries not for research or science itself, but it is designed for practice. So they form people just to go do the practice of librarians, to be librarians, like be practitioners. And this where we have a weak point in the library and information science in Africa. We don't foresee it as a science that can be researched even further, develop even further. So because first of all, library and information science, it is a user-centered study.
Yes.
It means that it does not only include classifications and indexation, as I said before, but it also analyzes the human behaviors, the interaction with information, the space, the people, the self. So there are a lot of things that to be studied. We can learn from social sciences and try to evolve the library and information science even further.
Yes, and I think I really like about what you did about the definition about the multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, so that at least some of the policymakers in future can be able to know exactly the difference. So that instead of mentioning a name just because it makes it marketable, it's supposed to also be knowing exactly the importance, the thematic importance of the name and what is supposed to constitute the program.
Exactly. I think that's it for this topic, or we had mentioned the most important point that we wanted to highlight for this podcast. Of course, the topic cannot be summarized in one episode, and we still have different other episodes coming up. But now we have another section, fourth section, which is dedicated to open current grants, scholarship, and fellowship available for Africans.
Yes, this section we decided in the last podcast that we'll always be sharing some of the available open grants scholarships, so that at least also people can be able to take advantage of some of these issues that are there. Because as we say, we don't want to see the profession dying, because there's more about there's more than having the degree. You need to also to competency skills. You need to educate yourself. The first scholarship you have today is a Commonwealth scholarship that is targeting countries within the Commonwealth region. The scholarships are mainly 3: PhD, Masters, and professional fellowships. And the deadline varies with the program that you apply for. The countries that are eligible are Bangladesh, that is not in Africa, but you've got Cameroon from Africa, Gambia, Kenya, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia.
Yes, and I just wanted to say that in each program, for example, for the program for the PhD, there is like the split site PhD, and also for the masters, there is the master scholarship and also the shares master scholarship. There is also the distance learning master scholarship, and as you mentioned, Frederick, there is the professional fellowship. So there are different fellowships and scholarship available. Each one of them has its own deadline, and it's open right now for most of the Commonwealth countries that you, Frederick, mentioned.
Yes, and depending on the time that you're listening to this podcast, the scholarship is 2025, for the year 2025.
Yes, for starting your studies in September 2025.
Yeah.
And the second fellowship opened also until the 15th of January 2025 until 5 p.m. Central European Time is the Branko Wise Fellowship. And this is designed for postdoc in all areas of natural and social sciences and engineering. It is very famous and also very well known, and it is open for all countries and all people from around the world. So please apply for it if you are having your PhD already by the 15th of January 2025.
And the last scholarship for the day is the Hungarian Scholarship 2025-2026. This scholarship is for the applicants who wants to join the study in September 2025. The deadline for submitting your application is 15th January 2025, 2 p.m. Central European Time. For details, I think there's a link. We will share a link. It majorly covers bachelor's, master's, PhD, and the goodness about the Hungarian scholarship, even if you want to do medicine, it allows. Very few scholarships allow medicine and nursing. The Hungarian will allow you to do that.
Yes, and of course we will share these links in our podcast in different platforms, YouTube and Spotify. And now we come to our last section, the one that you also love, the books and literature.
Yes, books and literature.
Yes.
So, Asma, today, what are you going to surprise us with?
Yes, today I'm going to Kenya.
Welcome home.
I know that you already presented this author, who is James Ngugi, as known Ngugi wa Thiong'o.
Yes, Ngugi wa Thiong'o.
So I know I'm not pronouncing it well. I'm sorry about that. But I've been reading him lately, and I've been reading a specific article that he wrote in 1971, which is called The Independence of Africa and Cultural Decolonization. And it is one of the most beautifully articles that I have read lately, actually, about culture and about decolonization of African culture, and which I recommend that every African should read. Every colonized or previously colonized country should read. So the author is from Kenya, and he regularly contributed to the most important newspaper periodicals in the East Africa. And he has written widely on the question of African culture and traditions, and he was formerly a professor in English literature at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. So I'm joining you for a Kenyan publication. Sorry about that, but this is a beautiful article that I have read, and I didn't want to unshare it. So I will share also the link about this article because I think everyone should read it. And what Ngugi speaks in this article, he speaks about culture and how it shaped Africa. And he stated that culture, in its broader sense, is a way of life fashioned by the people or a people who, in their collective endeavor to live and come to terms with their total environment. It is the sum of their art, their science, and all their social institutions, including their system of beliefs and rituals. And he further says that during the creative struggles and the process of humans to master their physical environment, there have been an evolvement of a body of materials and spiritual values that society, with a unique ethos, such values are often expressed through the people's songs, dances, folklore, drawing, sculpture, their rites and ceremonies. And also he adds, I'm quoting everything from his article because I could not unquote it because he says it beautifully.
Super.
When I read this, I just enjoy reading it. And he says, any discussion of culture inevitably centers around these activities, but we must bear in mind that they are derived from a people's way of life and will change as that way of life is altered, modified, developed through the ages. I cannot just say anything plus to this because it's just beautifully how he expressed it and how the way he said that we should decolonize. And then he also mentioned that the colonial history that built our fathers or our grandfathers, it's also part now of our African culture, our African ways of doing things. And how after the colonialism, he also separates the history of Africa before colonialism or before the white conquest and during the white conquest and after the white conquest. So it is a very beautiful article that I recommend very much. It is called The Independence of Africa and Cultural Decolonization. And I say the name of the author again, James Ngugi or Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I'm trying.
Yeah, basically it was at some point it's so sad. He was a political refugee. Yeah? He went for asylum exactly because of talking. And in fact, something fun used to talk in the mother tongue, some sayings, but they're really strong. Yeah, so I think he became a political refugee because of some of the writings. Yeah, but to see, because of that, he wasn't silent. That's why we have got a good piece of work from him. Huh?
So yeah, this was me. What about you, Frederick? What do you have for us today?
First of all, I think your presentation was so good about Google and Thiong'o. Next time, I think you allow me to present mine first, if you've got such a good piece of... Today's my presentation, first of all, it has been... I was motivated because of late I've been reading something about human flourishing. And they're saying that human flourishing in Africa is limited apart from countries like South Africa. And because of that, because we've got less discussion about human flourishing in Africa, that means people don't know about their rights and they feel that because they don't know their rights, that they feel now they're comfortable. And now because now we've got also challenges, we tend not to focus about our human flourishing. We tend to focus on the problems that we have at the expense of human flourishing. Little is known about human flourishing in Africa. I've been reading a lot about that, and I think in future I'm going to write something about it. Otherwise, the topic of today is all the way to Uganda. The book is called The Burdens, written by...
The Burdens.
The Burdens, yeah, exactly. Written by John Ruganda. Ruganda was a playwright and he's written several books. Apparently, he passed on in 2007. So The Burden, a play written by John Ruganda, is a non-Ugandan playwright who is one of the most significant voices in East Africa theatre, addresses themes of social, political, and psychological challenges through his works. So it shows exactly how we psychologically, how human beings tend to suffer because of political and also the surrounding. For example, losing jobs, such like thing. In the playwright, they've got somebody, there's an author called Wamala. Wamala, through his struggles in life, he feels that solution is a solution to the government. Because at some point he came up with a solution, saying that he has discovered a particular innovation. And the innovation was a matchstick. Got only one place to light the stick. So he said, in order to save the economy, now he's discovered you can have two places, so that you light on this one, and then later on the evening you use the other side. So it's a part of innovation. Out of his life mysteries, he felt now the little innovation that he has is a big innovation. So he kept on staying with it, hiding it, thinking that now he's going to solve the problems, because now he felt that the society he's been burdened. The wife and the family, everybody is a burden to him. So he felt that this small thing that he has is going to assist him solve the world problems, which did not at the end of the day, because at the playwright, at the end of the day, he passes on, but he still did not share the innovation. Apparently, up to now, we got the innovation, but nobody has ever thought about having a matchstick with two sides. So in the book, The Burden, Ruganda explores the struggles of individuals and communities burdened by the weight of their past, their personal and social circumstances, and the complexities of modern life. The play divides into themes of personal sacrifice, because he was sacrificed with his family, generational conflicts, and the emotional toll of historical and societal pressure. Because now he's a man, he's supposed to provide for the family, and he thinks this little innovation is going to assist, because all the other issues and all the other struggles that we've been trying to have, they're not able to solve the problem. And that's why I feel that human flourishing in this time and age is very important. And that's why I felt today I should share about this, because it resonates with what I'm reading at the moment.
Nice. Yeah. This Mala character, I remember a saying that if you have an idea and you don't let it out to the world, and then you keep it out of fear because someone gonna steal it from you, another person will have the same idea and they will do a move to make it happen. And then this idea that you had, and what actually people say when they say, I had the same idea, but yes,
why didn't you talk about it?
Yes, why didn't you act about it? So
Exactly.
this is very interesting point that you mentioned also about human flourishing. Since you mentioned that you're gonna write about it, that would be a very good move. Actually, I would love to read it. Yeah, it would be very interesting to read about these kind of stuff, because as we grow, as we read, it's not only to keep it for ourselves but also to share. That's the purpose, first of all, of this podcast, is to share what we are learning and what we think that people gonna benefit from.
Yes, and I think as we proceed on, I also advise also members, also to the listeners, also to be sharing our podcast with other people.
So that was it for today. Thank you for joining us for the 7th episode, and we hope that you enjoyed its content. And together we say, see you next time.